Welcome to the most disappointing RPG sequels video. Following Bloodlines 2 and realistically the disappointment that it is, considering the name that it carries, I got an idea to do this video naming all the most disappointing RPG sequels I can think of. On this list you'll see a couple objectively subpar and bad games, with mostly mediocre ones that simply didn't live up to the name of the previous installments. Some of them are strictly subjective, meaning something that disappointed me a lot, even though it might not be a bad or even mediocre game at all. So this list is a mix of subjective and objective, based on my knowledge and the games that I've played, with ranking being entirely subjective. Obviously there are far more outside of these ones, like Shenmue 3 for example, but I've never played the previous installments, so have no clue how to compare it to the older ones. In the comment section let me know which games are on your list, as I'm quite interested in what people think. One more important thing is that I'll only name the very first game in the franchise that disappointed me, not every single one. So for example, Veilguard and Fallout 76 won't be here because there were games prior to those that already went downhill. Two more important things to mention. I'll use trailer footage in the video because can't access PC at the moment because it's in the repair shop. Also, this list has been made with the help of my Discord server, so thanks lads. Let's get started, you disappointed bastards. At number 11 we have Dragon's Dogma 2. I have never been much of a fan of the original, but could recognize what made it a good game. Obviously, with the popularity that it had and the technological advancements, Dragon's Dogma 2 was supposed to be a masterpiece. Unfortunately, after the first 5 to 10 hours of amazement, flaws started to come out. Significant flaws. Time wasting being one of them. Utilizing more of a realistic fast travel system, it takes ages to get to certain locations, which wouldn't be bad at all if there was enough content diversity to match that, but instead the game becomes more tedious and repetitive as it goes on. Balancing is bad as well, from what I remember, with later parts being quite easy as soon as the player levels up a bit, which makes it even more tedious. Biggest disappointment was definitely for me the fact that actual Dragon's Dogma 2 starts as the part of a true ending, but there's only a limited amount of time we could participate in the alternate world. It was the best part of Dragon's Dogma 2, ruined completely by the developer's decision making. Not a bad game, but not a good one either. Full review is on the channel if you want to check it out. At number 10 is Blood Omen 2. Even though I haven't played the original, I did watch a lot of footage of it because anything Legacy of Kain is interesting to me. Blood Omen 2 was an attempt to rekindle the glory of the original in a 3D world. Unfortunately, it fails in almost every aspect. Again, not a bad game, but disappointing one nonetheless. Simple and predictable story, repetitive gameplay and lack of combat variety, art style isn't the best, boring puzzles. It's a mediocre game that can still be played and enjoyed if you can stomach the bad and the mediocre. Be warned that the Steam version is unplayable and requires a patch for it to run properly. At number 9 we have Fable 3. Fable has always been kinda a unique RPG with lots of small details that made it special. Fable 3 however killed the series as it never recovered to regain the former glory. Technically the game was a mess. Whichever technical problem exists, Fable 3 had it. Tons of bugs, crashes, deleted saves, performance issues. And then it's like they've decided to screw up all the good things about Fable games. No menus anymore, which made the process of doing anything more tedious. There was no combat and progression balancing. Spells were useless compared to some other weapon types. Decision making has been downgraded significantly with very little repercussions in later segments for choosing an evil path, which led to lackluster world building, plus many more mediocre and bad things the game does. At number 8 is Bard's Tale 4. I love In Exile and what I've done with the Wasteland series, but Bard's Tale 4 was a failure unfortunately compared to its predecessors. Problems were obvious after progressing to the mid-game. It became a repetitive puzzle simulator with couple puzzle styles overused throughout the game too frequently. It took away from the good combat system and explorative gameplay as it simply has taken too much time away from the other good aspects. Balancing was also a big problem as the game was too easy, which made combat less interesting as it went on. I remember playing the game on its release for Extra Life channel at the time and being in shock how unfinished the game was from a technical standpoint. Bugs, crashes, problems everywhere, unfortunately a staple of In Exile. Moving on to number 7, which is Eiyuden Chronicles, spiritual successor to the great Suikoden that unfortunately ended up as a mediocre product. While some of the things they nailed, like the character models, HQ mechanics, decent story and solid combat, lots of other aspects are nothing to write home about. Combat and the repetition of it is ruined by atrocious balancing, story and characters ruined a bit by atrocious filler dialogue, then the weak UI, big bugs on release, mediocre minigames. Too many problems that should have become better over time considering how old Suikoden 2 is and not get worse instead. Unfortunate because the game had potential to be good but design choices got lost in translation somewhere or something, or maybe the game got rushed out the door. No clue, either way it failed in being better. At number 6 is Nioh 2. The best game on this list, and a huge disappointment for me personally. I loved Nioh 1 despite its obvious flaws, and couldn't wait for the sequel, thinking the bad stuff is going to be improved and the game structured a lot better. Instead we got Nioh 1.5 with additional bloat, a couple things improved here and there, some of it later through DLCs, and the majority of its issues still remain and are going strong. Nioh 2 improved the Underworld Abyss content, but everything outside of the first difficulty and the Underworld is a waste of time. What Team Ninja has succeeded in is creating a menu simulator, where the game has so many unnecessary added systems on top of systems that it started to look like a free-to-play mess. Strongest aspect of the game, which is the gameplay, has taken backseat to Diablo-style grind, menu simulator, rushing through stages, repetitiveness up the wazoo, cheap difficulty at times, diminishing the effectiveness of skill variety with builds being more in focus, atrocious new boss super buff mechanic, and god knows what else that I can't remember anymore. Decent game, but it really disappointed me a lot and it showcased the limitations of Team Ninja, which was confirmed more and more with other brilliant games in Wo Long and that atrocity Rise of the Ronin. At number 5 is Mass Effect Andromeda. Remember what a shit show that was? Combat was actually decent, but it was such a technical nightmare that it didn't matter that combat was good. If they waited and fixed the game in the meantime, it was going to be at least an average game at best, but still better than what they showcased at the launch. Troubled development and being rushed out can never produce great games, and Andromeda showcased that. Writing was weak, characters were nowhere near as compelling as previous installments, all the technical atrocities like horrible facial animations, performance issues, bugs, broken everything that could possibly be broken. A horrendous shit show that killed the series. Hopefully we don't see any more Mass Effect games as long as this BioWare is holding the license. At number 4 is Final Fantasy XIII, one of rare Final Fantasies I haven't finished. Weak writing, subpar characters, and most importantly switch from an explorative game that is 12 to a hallway simulator that is 13. 10 did it okay, but 13 failed in almost everything. It killed the RPG elements of previous games where there were at least some towns, NPCs, and generally something to do other than fighting. Auto combat ruined the game because you never had to do anything anymore. So hallway simulator without exploration, auto combat that can deal with most fights, weak writing and characters. What else is needed to say? Worst Final Fantasy game I've played to this date, and I've played 15 and 16. At number 3 is Fallout 4. Fallout 1 and 2 are still at the pinnacle of my favorite games of all time, and even though Bethesda changed it significantly, I still thought of third Fallout as a decent game. Then New Vegas came out and took it to another level. When Obsidian was still good, you know. Then Bethesda took over again and showcased why it's one of the most overrated studios in gaming history, with only one great game under their belt that I've played, which is Morrowind. Haven't played the first and second The Elder Scrolls, so can't comment on that. Fallout 4 comes out and it's basically a shooter with a weak plot. RPG elements stripped to bare bones. Weak characters, plot, dialogue system and horrible character leveling system. You know, almost anything that made Fallout games stand out. Then the technical issues too. I couldn't finish it. First Fallout game I couldn't finish. Not even gonna talk about that shit called Fallout 76. I don't consider it Fallout. It's Bethesda's pitiful attempt at a cash grab, nothing more. Number 2. Diablo 3. I was never much of a fan of Diablo-esque games, but remember playing lots of them and loving the first two Diablos. First one was really atmospheric, and the second one was a truly well-made isometric action RPG. Then the third came out. My god, what a third. To this day I consider Diablo 3 the worst isometric action RPG in existence. Horrible art style, weak writing which didn't improve in the fourth, stupid shit like monk wielding weapons but not hitting with it, locked difficulties that slowed down the progression to a crawl, boring 80% of the time with no challenge, streamlined character leveling progression. I hated every goddamn minute of it, except the animations, which were really good. Utter shit of a game for the mindless whose brains are AFK. And now the number 1. Easy choice. Dragon Age 2. Another shit product that spelled doom for the franchise that died as fast in quality as it has risen. Yes, I'm aware that Velguard exists, but as I stated at the beginning, the point is to highlight the first game in the series where things went downhill. Dragon Age 2 was, as many on this list, a rushed product with problematic development, and it showcased that from the start. I played it for a couple of hours and then uninstalled it. Seeing the game turn into some kind of a streamlined RPG with reused assets all over the place wasn't going to cut it for me. Wave-based dynamic combat which is utterly stupid and illogical, weaker writing, plot problems, weaker character progression, technical issues. Basically everything Dragon Age Origins did to save CRPGs at that time, Dragon Age 2 destroyed. People don't realize the influence of Origins and that its success affected Obsidian, Inexile, Larian and Owlcat to continue making CRPGs, because at the time it was probably the only notable CRPG that didn't went into streamlining and erasing what made so many CRPGs great before. And then Dragon Age 2 comes and destroys almost everything Origins has made. EA is at fault here as well for pushing BioWare to release the next game so fast. Can't create a good CRPG in such a short span of time. Maybe EA is the biggest culprit in this story after all. Anyway, that's my list. New reviews are on Patreon and Subscribestar with video explaining why in the description. Thanks for watching.